with a big stare like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game, I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, tell like I'm some muscle. If you sell a lot of tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you wait down with that, then I got two words for you, suck it. Too sweet, put your fangs up.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast, Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. It is lovely to have you here this week. I have a massive show, as you could probably see if you saw what the runtime of this episode is. And that is because my guest this week is Criss Fresh. He was the one of the creative minds, the creative force behind probably the biggest boom period in MCW's history. Now he is the co-commentator at WrestleRock, one of the most brilliant minds in Australian wrestling going around today, I think. And it is lovely to chat with a guy that has this much knowledge and this much insight in the world of not just Australian wrestling, but wrestling in general. And you'll see in the chat, we go everywhere with this. So I'm going to keep this intro real short for that very purpose. And so yes, please do enjoy this conversation with Criss Fresh right here at Wrestle Radio Australia.
Hello, Corner Hotel, and welcome to WrestleRock.
Jules, I am a fan of professional wrestling, and this is the shit that I love.
I enjoyed the pose down. The irresistible force meets the immovable object.
Are these two idiots just going to rip off WrestleMania spots? Oh no, thumbtacks!
No.
Oh shit.
WrestleRock bringing you the best talent of all promotions, Jules.
This is WrestleRock.
The voice of WrestleRock, Criss Fresh. How are you today, mate? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I'm good. I'm watching as Melbourne's breaking out into chaos, but such is life over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But how's everything with you? Like Victoria and Queensland seem a million miles apart in not only distance but wrestling. How's everything going up there?
It's slowly coming back. There's nothing really in like the greater Brisbane area just yet that's come back, because the promotion that I sort of booked and I worked for, the Australian Wrestling League, that folded during COVID. It was just something that when the boys couldn't really see themselves coming out of it, which is fair enough because they had like work commitments and all of that, which you completely understand. So basically it's like the fringes at the moment. It's like Sunny Coast, Gold Coast, they're still running promotions, but the sort of like the greater Brisbane area has nothing at the moment.
So would you see that as opportunity?
Oh, 100%. Like I've said a million times, if I had the money, I would, if I didn't have a mortgage, I'd be lining up a promotion right now, because I know that crowd. I know the crew that can pull the shows off that crowd likes. So it's just a matter of time, I think, till someone eventually gets back into that area. I know people are trying, but I just don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, I guess fans of wrestling might not sort of think of the logistics of things. It's sometimes not as simple as going, well, Brisbane's got no promotion in there, let's move in. It's finding the correct venue. It's, making sure, is there a ring available? All of those sorts of things are sometimes the hardest parts of putting on a show. Gathering talent and sitting down with your little notebook, writing a show. That's the easy part. Times it's the legit side of things, and financial, most importantly, to sort of getting these things off the ground. You're looking at quite a few $1,000s to do it right.
Yeah, I think conservatively, if you're starting out, at least 10 grand.
Yeah,
like conservatively to take, because like I've got friends that own rings that have said, if you ever wanted one, because you'll probably put me on the show, so you can have the ring. We'll set it up. It's like, well, it's not that. I want entranceway. I'd want proper lighting. I'd hate to just go, here's a ring, use your normal pub lights or whatever lights, we're gonna have a show. Because that's not wrestling to me. It's just starting out, really. It's not.
Yeah, and to sort of give listeners an example, sort of, as I say, I don't know, Todd, whether your listenership's more people in the industry or outside of the industry, but like WrestleRock recently left our home ground of the Corner Hotel and worked at a venue that was not decked out at all for live events. And I love Mikey J, but, you know, sometimes getting blood from a stone when it comes to money. And I had a bad feeling about, you know, the logistics of it and how it was going to look, and sort of said, we need to get down there a week early and sort of do a production walkthrough of what do we need.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of us went down there, and, you know, it was an empty warehouse. And, you know, you're looking at, as you said, you know, you need truss to build an entranceway and then to set up around the ring for proper lighting. You know, are you going to have a screen? If you set up speakers, how is it going to sound? How much are you going to have? You don't want stuff bouncing off the walls. Are you going to use wireless mics? Are you going to use wired? You know, if like something that people wouldn't even think of is they had an office area that was going to be used as the locker room. It was all glass, so you have to curtain that.
Yeah.
So the fans don't see it. Curtains, really expensive. You know, there is so much financially, and I could see, like, Mikey had the cold sweats as production alone was shooting up into thousands of, you know, not a single bump had been taken. and yeah, and, you know, that's not including talent. It's not paying production staff. It's none of that. That's just getting it set up, you know, guardrails, ring, everything. So it is a super expensive prospect, but if you do it correctly, it can be super rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
As we've seen with so many promotions that have sort of really stood up on the world stage at an independent level. You know, like your EPWs, your RCWs and Wrestle Rampages, your PWAs, MCW. You know, they can do it. It's just not easy to do.
I think gone are the days where you can just have a mic, have a ring, and that's it. That's your setup, and a couple of chairs, and that's your show. I think that now is just not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. Maybe 5-10 years ago it was acceptable because people were just like, oh, this must be what independent wrestling is. But nowadays it's like, no. And I think I suppose that is credit to the Mikey J's and that, because they've raised that level now where that sort of stuff's just not acceptable.
Yeah, and I think the fans expect more. Like, there used to be a time where I think some fans used to be, this stuff's garbage compared to WWE, but let's go buy some cheap booze and sit there and cheer and boo. But now fans attend these shows expecting to see perhaps not the production level of AEW and WWE, but certainly from an in-ring standpoint, you know, a lot of these people are people you can see in WWE and AEW.
You will see in a few years.
AEW. Yeah. And, you know, it's like there are currently 3 champions in World Wrestling Entertainment that are Australian. And if that doesn't send a message that this is a breeding ground for talent, I don't know what does. And it's hard for me in a sense when I see all these people get grabbed up, because, you know, I sort of, at the end of 2019, I sort of reached a point where I was creatively fried and sort of, you know, dealing with wrestlers is dealing with wrestlers, as much as many of my friends. You know, Todd, you would know that.
Yes. It is the reason why my beard is so grey.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm done. You know, like MCW is, or certainly was at that time, you know, the biggest promotion in Australia. And, you know, I didn't feel I could effectively do my job. And if I felt and still feel if you can't effectively do your job, then don't do it. And, you know, it was sort of, I also had that retirement raft boat of, and I didn't use the term retirement because I know what that means in wrestling.
Yeah.
But I had the raft boat of, all right, I'm going to have a break from doing a major promotion and just do WrestleRock. And, you know, having every few months being able to sort of get my fix into my veins of doing WrestleRock. And that way it won't feel like I'm totally detached from everything. But it is hard because you see all these people go and you sit there and you start thinking, who are some of those young talent that's kicking about? You know, like what would you do with them?
Yeah.
And then, you know, the way my brain works, it's always, I look at promotions and it's like, they don't know what they're doing with this young talent. If I was there, this is how it would be, and it would be so much better than what they're doing. Which anybody who's worked with me would know that's a very Criss Fresh thing to do. But easy for me to say, sitting on the other side of a mobile phone screen, following Twitter, reporting on shows. But, you know, I do think that, you know, once things open up, we're going to have another exodus, you know, to Ring of Honor. You know, we know Slex, Brooks and Kellyanne, it was announced that, you know, Ring of Honor's got some sort of deal with them. And, you know, they'll be working, if not full-time there, certainly going back and forth, which would mean their availability to Australian promotions won't be as much as what it was. And, you know, you would assume Aussie Open from a PWA perspective are destined to have their futures overseas.
Yeah.
And overseas love taking our women. And, you know, I think Shazza, Jess Troy, Charlie Evans are all people that are ripe and ready to be taken. So
I'm infinitely surprised, and this is not a shot at all on Steph because Steph is amazing. I still can't believe that Jess didn't go before Steph, just because I'm an absolute mark for Jess. So that's just the way she works and how good she is in the ring. And it's not a shot on Steph, but I'm just surprised that she didn't get picked first.
SDL.
She's like unbelievable. I'm no knock on her at all, but I'm just saying
she's like Godzilla. And like I was like a little known fact is years ago in MCW when she was Facebook, I had the idea of bringing her into MCW unmasked. And I thought I'd get away with that one because they've got her under a mask. I'll bring her in unmasked. What's the big deal? And I got the polite message of no. You know, we've got plans for her, and rightfully so. You know, they unmasked her, and and look, she became the first MCW Women's Champion anyway. You know, we got there eventually, but I think just Steph's size and stature. Meant she was definitely there. And I think it's very competitive with the females. You know, I agree with you. Jess Troy's got it all, a great look, phenomenal wrestler. You know, but like it's, you never know who's going to go and when.
You never know what they're looking for.
Like, look at Lena Cross over in Perth.
Yeah.
Phenomenal look, tremendous athlete. Surely only a matter of time before she goes. You know, you could argue Kel getting to Ring of Honor is later than what you would have expected Cal to sort of get picked up by an international promotion. And
there's a girl in Adelaide, Delta Brady, and she's going to be.
I saw pictures.
Yeah.
I saw pictures, and it was like, I would be, if I was a promotion sight unseen, I'd be booking her and just making it work. Like, I can't speak to how she wrestles, but yeah,
it's one of those ones. Like, I tell this story all the time. When Cree and I first saw Demi actually work her first match, I said to him, "We're not going to have her for long, so let's just do as much as we can with her because she's like, she has it." You know, when you just see people that have it, like, she has it. We're not going to have her for long, so let's just make as much as we can out of the time we have with her. And I think Delta might be one of those ones as well.
Yeah. Look, it was the same with us with Indy. Indy was very young, but you could see, because she came across from PCW to MCW, but you could see her brain just soaking everything in like a sponge, and just like, you'd say something to her and she'd just look at you and nod and come back, and she'd have it the next show. And you'd say this and she'd just have it. And, you know, I remember my memory is terrible. Lockie Hendricks is my memory because I can't remember anything in that episode we did. But I think the Street Gang Hooligans from EPW were at MCW, and Indy came up to me and she said, "Do you think Alex Kingston would be okay if I stole his skateboard at one point?" And I smiled and I said, "Go up and ask him." And she did. And, you know, she stole the skateboard, she rode around on it, and then she started coming out with the skateboard for a little while there and stuff, and just doing stuff like that to sort of taunt the crowd. She really just got it together, and it's amazing how quick she's just taken off in NXT.
The one thing I didn't realize, like, I know Indy. Well, I've met Indy a few times. I didn't realize how good her comic timing was. Yeah. Until like lately, those promos, I'm just like, that's like comic. One thing you can't teach, and that is like comic timing, and she has it. Which you couple that with her promo, her actual work in ring, and it's a hard combination to beat, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I sense it. Like, she's a few years away, but in Melbourne, there's a wrestler called Aisha. I got to say Aisha because apparently Jules and I at a WrestleRock were saying Aisha, and she was not happy. It's Aisha. And Aisha, she broke a sugar glass bottle over Charlie Evans' head at WrestleRock, and the way she celebrated and taunted the crowd after she did it, and you could see her coming out of her shell, and it was like, she'll put this together and give it time, you know, because it takes time. Like, everybody's coming out of, especially in Melbourne, a really heavy lockdown where you couldn't train, you couldn't do matches, you know, you couldn't get those reps in. But give her time of getting matches under her belt and having perhaps people sit down with her and work on character work with her. Give her time, and I think she's going to be a star. I was just watching her, and it was like,
PCW seem to have a real strong crop of young people coming out at the moment. Like, it was like spearheaded by Royce, and then behind you're like, oh, so who else have they got there? You have a look at their shows, and you're like, there's a lot of young talent ready to come out of that place.
Yeah, like, they had a very insular ecosystem where, and that's me being as diplomatic as humanly possible, where the talent just weren't encouraged to spread their wings. And they were provided enough shows because they do so many shows at their venue that you didn't need to work other shows because, you know, you had your fill. Train here and we'll give you 3-4 matches a month. You know, why you don't get a chance to go, I wonder if I'm going to go work at MCW, or I wonder if I'm going to go work at Showdown or like one of those shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, sort of Tome, Stevie, and Indy were the first ones to sort of make the break and get out of there. And, you know, and they still went back and wrestled occasionally, but, you know.
Yeah, I think that was the thing, like getting out then still being able to go back. Because I think for a while there, they had a thing as like, you leave us and that's it. You don't come back.
Yeah. It's, and, you know, Royce, look, I know Todd and I share a mutual respect and love for Adam Brooks. And I looked at Royce and he reminds me of Adam Brooks circa 2011. And
I said, I think I even said it to him. I said, you like somebody took Adam Brooks and Ryan Rollins and smashed them together.
Yeah. Yeah. And Royce, like, he's another one that's putting the character work together with what he can do in ring. And like, he's the future for Australia, providing he doesn't go too quick. And you just don't know. But like, what he can do physically is incredible. Like, you just watch it and it's like this is amazing. And then you see him starting to put together his character a bit more. It was sort of like Brooks used to tease the Dingley stuff, which is a sort of bogan, rough area of Melbourne. But he never fully leaned into it. No. You know, like, there was always a bit of it, you know, a cheekiness to it, but he never fully leaned into it, where it appears Royce is just going balls to the wall, leaning into it. And, you know, it's good on him, because he'll probably go too far and then peg it back, but that's part of working out who you are as a performer and who you are as a character. You know, he just did a great video, I think it was for Deathmatch Down Under, that got a lot of rave reviews. And I watched it, and the second I see a promo video like that go over 2 minutes, I go too long. You know, you need an editor and you need somebody just peg it back a little bit, because we're in an era where you're competing with so much on YouTube. Yep. Like, everything is YouTube. I'm an old man with children, and my children don't watch TV. No. They watch YouTube. Teenagers don't watch YouTube. They watch even shorter clips on TikTok. So we're in this age where you've got a very short amount of time to grab somebody's attention and do it quickly. But if you can grab it, you've got them. They'll share, they'll repeat it.
I think you've got, like you said, 2 minutes where they'll stick around. But I think even shorter than that, you've got 30 seconds to make them stick around for that 2 minutes.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? You got to grab them in that 30 seconds, and then they'll stick around for that other minute 30. Otherwise, they're out of there. I know, because I'm the same. Just, it's so easy to just scroll. Yep, done.
Because I call it being a phone zombie. We all do it. We just sit there forever, just constantly in a constant state of scrolling and looking at our phone. And all of us in Aussie wrestling, shameless whores, where we constantly vanity scroll, and, you know, we're seeing what everybody else is doing. We're being jealous about what somebody else is doing. You know, it's how everybody, you know, we're claiming we could do better. It's how we all work. But there's also a lot of fans out there looking for something to look at and for something to watch and for a movement to get behind. And I think if you can capture people, it can spread. You know, I think the biggest mistake a promotion, in my opinion, and it's not worth that much, but, you know, a few promoters know my price. In my opinion, I think the biggest mistake you could make in Australia is attempting to be WWE. You know, or even worse, WWE Light. Like what I saw, and unfortunately, through the stupidity of many, speak out destroyed a lot of goodwill. But we did see an independent movement rise. And, you know, particularly through the British scene. And on the sort of, if that's on the right, on the left-hand side of that was Japan. And what I saw AEW as was taking the indie movement and making it corporate, which was very smart by Tony Khan. You know, because there was such a rabid fan base for a non-WWE product and such talented performers out there on the independent market. Imagine if you could galvanize that independent base, get them to ignore the fact you're a billionaire and tell them this is a revolution that you need to get behind and support. You know, and that's what AEW was. And that inevitably was going to cause tremendous damage to the independent scene, because how do you compete with that? You know, because people will go to you, I don't need to see your low-level version of this because there's a really high-level version of it on TNT or soon to be TBS. But I think there's a chance now, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't know what it is, to start a new movement again and work out how, because at MCW, and I keep referencing that because that's where I was for a lot of my time. I used to look at it and go, all right, we're not one of the big boys. We can't do this. We can't do that. But what we can do is create a live experience and give the audience something back at a grassroots level. Because if you go to WWE, you know, you might actually get a really good Cesaro versus Seth Rollins match. Be great. You know, those guys are two of the best workers in the world. But I tell you what, you can't get going to the merch table afterwards and then being available to take a photo with. Yeah. And, you know, that community sense, or that thank you, and that, and talent need to remember this too. Like, just as you go to sort of brush off fans, and fans can be a pain. Like, trust me, I know. Like, but you know, a lot of them are genuine and they want to support you, and they want to support you with their money and their eyes and their time, and never take that for granted, because it's a gift that you have to make them want to do that. And if we can capture that moment and hone it and get the skills right, people will much prefer that live experience than what they will being forced to watch TV when nobody wants to do that anymore. Yeah. The one thing I will say, like, I agree with you, the fan experience with the guys going to the merch table and they get to meet them after that. One thing I don't like though is when the heels are doing that. I would rather my heels just stay backstage. I know it's, and I if anything, if that means I would have to pay, say, the heels more because I know they're losing out on merch sales, I think so be it. But it's just the fact that you keep that, you need that heel that they hate. Yeah, you need the heel that they hate, so they will cheer the babyface more. And that, Todd, I don't disagree with you at all. Like, and I know people go back and forth on this of, you know, kayfabe is dead, you know, what are you talking about? But if anybody's listening that's been there for a classic Criss Fresh pre-show speech, I always say that the audience give us their suspension of disbelief. They're playing along with us. You can talk about kayfabe all you want, but for the most part, they cheer the faces and boo the heels, right? Now, they may like the heels, but they're booing them because they know that's their role in this theater that we are performing. And I think to remove that from them is an insult to them. And like one who's great at it is, and you know, I keep mentioning him because he's my illegitimate son, Lockie Hendricks, is I loved that Lockie was always just a shit, no matter what. And if a fan did catch him, he didn't attack them. You know, he was very smart about it, because I think some people sometimes cross that line too, of getting it wrong with how to engage with the fan if you are a heel, because there is an art to it. But if a fan goes, "Excuse me, Lockie, can I get a photo?" You will get a "no" in that Lockie voice, and he'll storm off like in a huff, and you're probably going, "What a dick," and you know, and that's fine. But what you're not, and I would like to think what you're not going to do is go, you know, Lockie was horrible to me and it ruined my experience of the night. You know, it's more, you're excited almost that you upset him. Like you feel you upset him as opposed to he upset you. And there is a difference with that. And a funny story with Lockie is after a WrestleRock, my nephews came along because they wanted to get drunk and watch some wrestling, and they came and they loved Lockie. And I know Lockie hates taking photos with fans. You know, he detests it. He's a heel. And I said to them, "Go up and ask Lockie for a photo." And I saw my nephews go up there, and they asked him for a photo. And Lockie's, you know, he might have had a few post-show beverages at this point, and, you know, he declines them. And they came back and I said, "Go up and say that you're Criss Fresh's nephews and you want a photo." And they went up and Lockie declines again. And they came back and I said, "All right." And I go, "Lockie, take photos with my nephews." And I haven't seen it, but somewhere they will have a great photo with a very drunk Lockie Hendricks looking absolutely miserable that I made him take photos with them. And I was like beaming as I was holding the phone, taking the photo to get it. But, you know, I will say, and as somebody in my own career in wrestling where I was always a heel, we do have to be careful we don't know the fan's story when they are approaching us. And, you know, try and read the room before you snap into character. Like that would be my advice, because we have seen instances at times where, you know, perhaps the line was wrong, you know. And
see, little if I get little kids come up with their parents and ask for a photo, I'll take a photo because I'm not a complete animal. But most times, if somebody tries to talk to me like that, I'll probably just deadline, ignore, like, sorry, busy, and keep walking. Yeah, because I like keeping that distance, because I think as a heel, that's my role, is to keep a distance. I don't want them to empathize with me at all. If anything, I want them to just go, that I don't care what happens to him whatsoever. I think I had that discussion with someone like this past weekend. I was at a show, and then after the show, everyone was mingling, and the guy came up to me and goes, "Why don't you ever go out there?" I said, "Because I don't want to be out there. That's where they are. The only time I want them to see me is when I'm coming through that curtain." That's what keeps that's why I'm still really hated after being there for 4 years. Constantly every week they still hate me because they don't know me. I don't want them to know. I want them just to think of me as who they see for that 15, 20 minutes I'm out there.
Or you can have a scenario where you crack a jack and he's on 24/7. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because I'm pretty sure I could pick up the phone and call him right now, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to get the man or the performer, but I'm most likely going to get the performer.
Do you have you watched it all, that WWE's Hidden Treasures?
No.
Oh, they had, like, last week. It's basically like a bloody what would you call it? Like a fortune hunt sort of thing for WWE.
Like a Storage Wars type thing?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. But for like memorabilia. But last week's was Sergeant Slaughter. They were looking for stuff for Slaughter and Iron Sheik. And they went to Bob Backlund's house. And that guy never breaks character.
No.
The whole time. He never broke character to the point where I was almost like, oh, just dial it back slightly for me, will you?
Come on, Bob, just tune it down.
But then, because I hear stories that he won't give autographs to kids unless they can name the presidents in order.
Yes, no kids doing that.
No.
I couldn't name prime ministers in order. Like it's not going to happen. But funny you mentioned Backlund. In the first time I went to America was for Mania 30, and we went to Raw the next night, and we're just walking around the sort of the mezzanine, and we can hear screaming, and it's like, what on earth's going on? And there was Bob, and just getting a fan in a chicken wing. I'm not sure what the circumstances were, and I just thought WWE just might go, all right, Bob, just go out there and chicken wing a few people.
Yeah.
Like just how it goes. And it was like, what a life he leads. And he still looks exactly the same. That dude, that dude doesn't age.
Well, when they went to his house, he's like, I haven't finished doing my exercise. And I had to wait for him to stop doing those Harvard steps. And then when he did it, he goes,
Jesus.
okay, I'll deal with you now.
I tell you, the one time I really got annoyed with a wrestler and selling merch and going to the table and stuff, and I just let it go, was the NXT North American champion.
But then what are you going to say to him?
Well, I just twitched in the corner and didn't say anything. But had a cage match, and from the cage went to the merch table and sold merch. And
I don't know if that's amazingly carny or
I know, and there was something to it. And you know, Jermaine, you can't help but love him. So you're like, oh, that Jermaine. But like anyone else, I probably would have murdered them when they got backstage. But I saw it and it was like, ugh, like yuck. Like it's and he lost that cage match. So that's like even more distressing to me.
Yeah.
Of, you know,
sell it for a little bit, please.
Yeah, but look, he was leaving, so it was what it was. You know, it was like that. I'll let that one slide, but it would have been Jonah.
I suppose he's leaving. He's like, what are you going to do? Not book me? I mean, come on, I'm gone.
Yeah. And look, the second he'd come back, he'd be the first one in my inbox going, so what do you got for me? And it would be like, all right, here we go. But I think with Bronson Reed, in case people don't know who we're talking about, there wasn't anybody in the country that wasn't happy for him. And that's a testament to him. You know, like you'll always get jealousy and bitching in wrestling of, you know, screw them, or they hit on my girlfriend, or, you know, she did this or they did that. But with him, there's no way anybody's got a bad word to say about him.
Yeah, there's no dirt at all on.
No, there's
him.
Nothing. Like,
no.
Apart from the fact he likes Villies, gross.
Hey,
I
live in Queensland, but I'm still a South Australian, mate. So just
let that go.
Calm down on the Villies, okay? We're getting along.
He gets very upset. He gets very upset at me when I attack Villies. But yeah,
if it wasn't for Villies, Matt Basso would still be a single man. So.
Oh really? He met his
wife at Cafe de Villies.
That is, well, my issue with Cafe de Villiers is I had heard so much about it, and I was in South Australia for Jay Andrews' wedding, and everybody goes, we've got to go there, and I'm like, all right, I'll go there, like I'm up for good eats. And it was a dirty industrial area cafe, and I was like, what? This is not what I was picturing. Like, what is this? And like Mikey in his Zubaz looking like a bum as he always does, is like happy with his giant snot block, like strutting around. And I'm just like, oh, like the only thing Adelaide has that I'm very jealous of is classic chocolate milk. Like that is the gold standard of flavored milk. Nippy's get in the bin, but classic flavored classic milk is good. Farmers Union iced coffee get in the bin.
Ooh.
Yeah, but yeah, you heard that right, South Australia.
Do you know what the difference is though? Because we've got Farmers Union iced coffee up here, but they don't have the strong.
Okay, yeah.
There's different
like
the
good stuff.
They don't have the heavy supercharged Farmers Union.
Yeah. So here's a question I'm going to ask you, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to name 2 or 3 people just in Australia, not to go overseas, but just to rise up in Australia, who should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, see, the people I like at the moment are already like Jess Troy is probably, like I always say, she's in my top 5 favorite Australian wrestlers. She's probably my favorite one to watch at the moment, just because I always see a good variety from her, and her character is just so strong and like that. But there is guys like there's Royce, of course, which is as you would say. Out of Adelaide, there's a few young guys that have just they've got that thing where you go, they need to put that extra thing together. Like you've got the Pereira, who have been around for a while.
Yeah.
But they just don't get a chance to get out, I guess, because of the whole lockdown and all of that sort of stuff. But if they got a chance again on that, say, the MCW sort of platform, or even PWA, I think they would take off as well, because both of those guys are absolute machines when it comes to wrestling, and they've got the character, they've got the look.
So what I heard with the act was that they're better with the manager. Would you agree with that?
No, that depends what you're looking
they're
for.
Okay.
Like, because they've moved more into like, now they're in a heel faction called the Family, or something like that in RC Dub, but that's with Tyler Daniels and Rocky Monero. Yep. So being with those two guys, they're going to learn more anyway. But they're leaning more into more sort of like Godfathery mafiosa type.
Okay, I can dig that. Yeah.
But they really do pull it off. So, but they're just those loudmouth little guys that you want to punch their head in, but you know that they could probably whoop your ass anyway, which is probably more annoying when it comes to that. There are guys like PWA. There are a couple of young guys. There's a guy, Headhunter Rig, who's been around out in Newcastle. Yep. I hope he gets a shot in PWA in a more substantial role, because he's an absolute unit of a dude, and just like solid in ring. But there's like the thing is, at the moment there's just like a whole pack of talent all around the country, and you're just waiting to see somebody sort of break out of that bunch.
Yeah.
And I suppose you'll know it when you see it, because you'll just be like, oh, there's that guy. I mean, Matty Wahlberg did it a few years ago. There was that whole group of talent, and then Matty Wahlberg just sort of went, nah, here I am. Do you know what I mean? And it's sort of like,
and the thing with Matty is like strong character based. And that's what young talent need to keep in mind as well, is like Matty can go, but what grabbed the attention was his character. And it's the same as Lockie. Like he's sort of, I think his in-ring ability gets overlooked because his character stuff is so strong. But Lockie can go. Like there's not a situation that I can think of that I can't put him in. And while he might not be the most natural athlete, you know, like, and have like Royce, I just assume Royce did a backflip as he was being pushed out and born.
Yeah.
You know, where Lockie has achieved everything through just grit and determination of, I'm going to will myself into being able to do that. But there's nothing wrong with that either. Like if the end result gets you there, you know, and like the MC, which is starting to spawn talent, you know, Anth Cabra and Skylar Cruz. Anth has a tremendous physique, and, you know, he's only going to develop. And Skylar Cruz, her promo work, like for somebody that is new, is tremendous. Like she sort of looked at me almost like, are you sure, when she was going to cut a promo at WrestleRock, and she goes, so what do you want me to say? And I said, oh, you know what you're doing. And she gave me this weird look of, huh?
But she's also, like, speaking of what you were talking about earlier, she's also one of those ones that probably needs to learn how to just like shorten it slightly.
Yeah, but she'll get there.
Yeah,
but the only way she'll get there is to be given the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm with you on that. Like, I know somebody will unlock the key properly, and she's been around for a while in terms of trying to put it all together, but Chanel Phoenix, who was originally from Adelaide and originally from Melbourne, didn't wrestle in Melbourne. She's from Melbourne, moved to Adelaide. Now she's moved back to Melbourne. But I remember when I first met her, it was during her induction into the academy. And I was talking to her and sort of hearing who she wanted to be and what she wanted to do. And I hope she doesn't mind me saying this. Like, to me, it was a bit of a mess. You know, the character was all over the shop. And I was like, tell me about you. And she's going, oh, you know, I'm a gymnast. I do mixed martial arts. And I'm just looking going, why aren't you incorporating this into who you are? Like, and I get it. What she wanted to play a character that wasn't her. And I can understand that, like, from a performance standpoint, you want to go out and perform. You don't want to be you. You know, sometimes the fun of wrestling is not being you. But I said to her, you have gifts that other people don't have, and you're real. Yeah. Like, and if you can incorporate that into who you are, there's something very different between you and everybody else. And, you know, and now I see her in the gi and she's there and she's got the hands taped and stuff, and it's real. Like, if you want to go question her, go to her social media, have a look. She's legit. It's not a joke. And she's a gymnast. You know, promos need work, but Mikey did a video for her that was tremendous. And sometimes that's all people need, a video package and an opportunity. And it's not going to be perfect every time, but you just got to be patient. Yeah. And I know it's hard. Like, if you've got to fill a building of 400 or 500, it's hard to be patient at times. Like, I get it. But, you know, if you do it right, the payoff is going to be way worth it. Yeah, that's like with two guys that I didn't mention before, but like I'll mention now, Jet Ruka and Tyson Baxter. I want to see some character work from those guys, because looking at them in ring, they've got all the tools. They just need that little extra that will connect them to the fans, I think. Just that little bit more. Todd, for me with them, it's like, to use it, I sound like an AFL commentator, they've just got to get on the park. You know, unfortunately, they've had a really bad run of injuries. Like, I feel bad for them because they're great guys. And it seems like every time they start to get a bit of steam, they get hurt. So I've never met Tyson, but I've met Jet, and I've had him on the show, and he's a really good guy. Yeah, no, they're both great kids. There's another kid out of the academy that works Deathmatch Down Under called Hector Jones. I love that guy. Yeah, after that first show, I messaged Joel and I said, if you just keep this guy winning by small packages or roll-ups or what the oldest moves you could possibly think, backslides, you'll get a money thing out of him 6 months down the track if he keeps doing that. Good promo too. Yeah, great promo. I love the whole Mr. Wrestling gimmick. Yeah, he was a good promo a year ago. And it was like, I'm glad to see him, because, you know, MCW is not always going to be able to accommodate everybody onto shows. And I'd like to think, I don't know, you know, my connection with MCW isn't what it once was, but, you know, I'd like to think that they're encouraging people to get out there and work these other shows and, you know, get some experience. But because we're going to record, Todd, I was looking at the promotions in Australia and I was thinking, who do I consider to have the best roster? I love stuff like that. And it's like, I tell you what I was thinking, you cannot argue against it. It's EPW. Like, I was just looking at their roster and it's like, I know it's because they're on the other side of the country. And it gets forgotten. But it's like, Jesus Christ, like Davis Storm, Mikey Nichols, the Don, Muffins, Slats, Taylor King.
Gavin McGavin.
Gavin McGavin, like tremendous.
I had him on last week, and it is dead set one of my favorite conversations I've had over the last year and a bit was with Gavin, because it was something he never really talks about, the behind the scenes of like how he works on, and just getting that side of him. Now I'm just like, if I wasn't a fan of you before, I'm even more of a fan of you now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But I was just looking like, and they've just stolen from us Kaz Jordan, and like, it's like their stuff. It's incredible, the talent roster that they've amassed over there. And I think the only reason it's not talked about more is because for us, it's so expensive to get them over to our shows.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think they would be invading all of our shows and getting rated and being used as much as possible. And that's not to say that other promotions aren't great. It's just, I just couldn't believe how good EPW's roster was.
Yeah.
Like it's extraordinary. And, to have the Godfather sort of sitting at the top, giving them all advice and life lessons and stuff, you couldn't be any more lucky.
And even like the funniest thing, because I've had them all pretty much on the show over the last few months, and you don't even think about Mikey Nichols being an original as well, but he was.
Yeah.
He was an EPW original and has been to NXT for a year or so. Current New Japan bloody roster member, worked for years in Noah. The dude's got 1,000 years of experience in wrestling, and he's just sitting there in their training facility, just doling out knowledge left, right, and center to people.
Yeah, it's it's pretty, like, EPW is pretty impressive of what they've put together. Another person I rate pretty highly is Tommy Knight out of Wrestle Rampage. Like, another one where I think I'd love to get him and just work out who he is. And
I'd like to see someone put some real mongrel into him, if that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I look at that, and I look at somebody like Tommy Knight, and it's like, there's room for a Scott Norton type in Australia that's just a big dude that will fuck you up. Pardon my French. I don't know if you're allowed to swear on this.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's like having bloody Jake Andrew Arthur.
Yeah, I love Jake.
Like that is a massive human who knows what to do with his body.
Been to the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, medaled. Like,
you watch his highlights too, and like half of those you're like, yeah, that guy didn't. It wouldn't matter if that guy didn't want to take that. He was going over. He had no choice when he does that double arm takeover.
Yeah,
it's like that guy was going regardless. He had no choice in the matter.
You're going. It's funny because when I was, Jules and I were working out what we were going to do with you at WrestleRock, and Mikey was like, "Must you do comedy with him?" And it's like, yes, every. But it's good for Jake to do something that's not his comfort zone.
Yeah, because
it doesn't matter. Like, look, WrestleRock matters in terms of we want you to have a good time, but we're certainly. We don't expect you to follow the storylines and yada, yada, yada. It is, our new slogan is don't overthink it. As we keep saying, it makes no sense. And, Jake currently is now, like, he's gone from playing an evil Russian to playing a 70s martial arts movie sensei, complete with the Enter the Dragon music.
Very good.
And he just does it. Like, it's like you say, all right, Jake, you're right to do that. Yeah, no worries. And it's like, he doesn't question it. Like, he just goes ahead and does it. But it's like Ugg. Ugg is another one. Ugg's one I expect to get signed. Like, how can you not sign Ugg? Like, he is just a big boy. I heard a rumor.
He's also learning like acting and stunt man work too. So, I mean, he has that whole other side to him.
I'm not going to address which show it was, but I'm just going to say I heard a rumor that there was a young lady drunk at a wrestling show. She was very drunk, and security needed to escort her out, and she took out security. She handled security, and there was only one person for the job, and it was a caveman. And Ugg may or may not have been. I'm just saying. I'm not confirming. I'm just saying may or may not have been seen assisting this lady out of the thing, and I just laugh at the idea of security getting taken out, and I'd go, all right, love, you've had enough. You're out of there. Only in Aussie wrestling.
I remember something back in this is sort of off topic, but we're at a birthday party. This is years ago, and my mate and I went as Batman and Robin, and the security guards were having trouble kicking this guy out. So we grabbed the guy, picked him up, and threw him out the thing. And the security guard laughed for a solid half hour, just going, "I just had Batman and Robin kick somebody out of my pub."
There's nothing wrong with that. Another show, allegedly it's a different show, Jules called me up on Sunday and he was giggling, and he goes, at the end of the show, like in the main event, Ugg was standing at the bar just drinking, and he goes, do you remember, me and you look over and it's like we saw a celebrity in the crowd, and just live on the mic we start going, Ugg's in the crowd, like we hadn't seen him, like we're just fans just there, and we're excited. And I said, yeah, there was something exciting about seeing Ugg just standing there enjoying a beer, as yet still in his furry lower half, but a nice polo, I think, for the top half.
There are rules.
He was wearing a collar to make sure he got served. But yeah, it's wrestling's a very weird, strange sport, but like it's definitely, I think once we can get past all this COVID stuff, I definitely think the future's bright. It's still bright for Australia, because I think last year there was certainly a point in time where it just felt grim, like
there was the whole
shows. Yeah, like shows weren't happening, but stuff online was going on. It was about a year ago exactly, and it was just like people, I think we lost a few wrestlers because they were just like, this isn't fun, and like, I don't know what I'm going to do in wrestling going forward. Like, I'm definitely doing WrestleRock, but I'll be 60 in the kilt, out in the ring. But, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future, but, if I could do anything, it would be to make sure it's fun, because none of us are getting rich off it. Apart from those that eventually get signed, but at a local level, the money's just not there.
And Mikey J.
Yeah.
Wow.
He'll swear that he doesn't, but I don't know. He's got a pretty sweet action figure collection.
I was going to say those zoo bars don't come cheap, mate.
No, they don't. And like keeping the upkeep on that mullet, which is rotten. But as long as we can keep it all fun. And the other thing is promotions pay wrestlers. Like they're training, they're fake tanning, they're getting gear, they're bumping and putting their bodies on the line. And if I know promoters aren't going to like me saying this, but too bad. If you can't afford to pay your people, you can't afford to run, and that's just the way it is. Like it's, leave it for people that can run and go work for someone and hope that they pay you. I feel very strongly on that. It's not just because I'm a union rep in my real life job. I do feel it's important, that at least that the talent can go to Macca's after the show and all sit around and talk about the night's events and have that bonding experience. When I hear that people aren't getting paid and aren't walking away from shows with some money in their pocket, there's something inherently wrong with that. And wrestling's grown beyond those days.
Yeah.
And
I always said that if I was to start a promotion, I would say, look, I would be completely upfront with the roster. This is my operating costs. Anything I make over this, I will split evenly with you guys. because it's you guys that make the show.
Yep.
Because I think that's the only fair way to go about it. And when you start making and almost make it like, this is what we made on the show. We can do this or we can do that. Which one would you guys prefer? Yeah, so everyone feels like part of the deal. Do you know what I mean?
In areas when MCW was still growing in the early days, there were certainly discussions of, we can't pay you more because we're investing back into the company. But once the numbers grow, your money's going to grow.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that's what happened. I know I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, I got paid more once the company grew. And I know a few of the wrestlers, they got paid more once the company grew. So I'd like to think that's still the case now. When I first broke in to wrestling, and I was broken in by Jim Demirov, who wrestled in the dying days of Festival Hall. And he promoted through the dark days of the 80s and 90s when people weren't going to shows. And Jim, before the shows on the Friday, would go to the bank and take out everybody's pay and put them in envelopes. And he'd always say to me, what I get tomorrow night on the door has nothing to do with the talent. They've done their job, you know, and I'm paying them. And that lesson always stuck with me. And it took me a few years to punch it into Mikey of, you know, do the envelopes the night before. Like, what you get tomorrow has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, I think you should already work into your budget before
you absolutely
sell a ticket.
And it's different now because I think most shows do pre-sales. And we're seeing it with this sellouts. Like, we're selling out weeks in advance, you know, MCW selling out, you know, promotions are selling out before you even getting there. So it's, you know, it's a non-discussion. You've made your money if you're selling out. There's no reason that you can't pay anybody, you know.
Yeah, you haven't got an excuse on the matter.
Yeah, like I had spoken, like, before the last WrestleRock, I was chatting to Mikey on the Friday going over the show, and he was doing the envelopes as we spoke, you know, and it was great. Like, everybody was paid before the show. Like, there was no waiting around. Like, I used to hate the queue after the show, waiting for your money, almost like, you know, your dog begging for food or something. And it's like, it shouldn't, like, wrestling has once again, thankfully, grown past these things, and you know, we're in a better spot. Yeah, I do question it in how was it in 1999 I was getting paid $150, and there'd be some talent that would be choking hearing that 22 years ago that's what I was getting paid. So something went wrong in between there and now. But yeah, I do think wrestlers need to know their own worth. Promoters need to know their own limits. But the future is extremely bright in this country.
I don't know how many times I've had like a young wrestler sort of looking around like, "What's wrong, mate?" He goes, "Oh, don't know about going up. And like, how do I ask about my pay?" He said, I was like, "Did you work?" He goes, "Yes." Yeah. Then just go up to him and say, "Thank you very much. Can I have my?" So you gave him a service. Now he's to pay you for that service. So it shouldn't be a thing you dodge around, mate. Be professional about it.
I have talent come to me asking me, "What's your advice?" And do you know what my advice is? And sometimes they'll ask me advice on dealing with Mikey, where I've got insider trading knowledge. But what I always say is, go up with your price, be prepared to negotiate, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like, you know, like, have your cutoff limit where you go, "I'm not working for less than that."
Yeah.
You know, and also have your limit where you go, "I'm okay with working for this," you know, and that's what it will be. And the promoter may decide that, you know, they can't afford to pay you that, and that's the promoter's right. It's they've got their own limitations. Like Todd would know when you're running shows, like, you know, I just spent $3,000 on a lighting rig. You know, sorry, I can't give you 70, I'm giving you 50. You know, like maybe that happens. Or I can't give you 300, I'm giving you 250, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
You know, it really does depend, you know, or maybe you've flown up Adam Brooks and Slex to do your main event, and that's cost you a lot of money. So you can't pay some other people as much as what you'd like to pay them. So then it's up to them whether they go, the exposure of being on the show with Slex and Brooks is worth taking the $20 hit on my pay. You know, and people might be going, you know, why on earth are they talking about this? Because a lot of you won't know who I am, and we won't get to have these conversations. And I've been involved in wrestling for, you know, 22 years now.
Yeah.
And
so it's like,
you
know your worth, but don't price yourself out of the market as well.
Yeah, I love wrestling, and I love working with everybody. And, you know, if I can give advice that will help somebody, I'm happy to give it. I'm happy to help. I'm not the monster I was in my younger days. You know, when you get older, you calm down. There's no need. I have my moments, but, you know, there's no need to be so wound up and stuff. You know, you work out through life that what really matters and what really doesn't matter. And, you know, I'm at a stage where wrestling's fun, but it doesn't matter. Like not
at the end of the day,
not in the grand scheme.
At the end of the day, it's a bunch of guys in their undies jumping around. I mean, let's face it.
Exactly. But, you know, if we can create something really cool, great. Like that's and that's what we want to be able to do together. And yeah, well, hopefully, Todd, you end up getting a promotion in Brisbane so you don't have to travel.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, I don't get to travel. No one invites me, mate. Fat managers are easy to come by.
Well, take it from me, who lives legitimately 10 minutes from PCW, but somehow only works promotions 45 minutes from my home. Although WrestleRock's a strictly public transport and or Uber affair.
There we go.
We
promote fairly dusty drive home otherwise.
We promote responsible WrestleRocking.
I will ask, do you miss the long-term booking, the monthly show sort of schedule that you used to be on? Like just the whole creation? Because I know when the AWL folded, I went through I wasn't like you where like you just sort of like were burnt out and you just wanted the break. I wasn't ready for that break. I was sort of like still. Yeah. And to me, that was just a huge, like big gap out of my life that went like creatively. And I suppose that's probably why I've jumped really feet first now into doing this all the time, is because to try and fill that sort of gap.
Get your outlet. Yeah,
exactly. Because I know you do 2 podcasts a week or something now?
Yeah, 2 podcasts a fortnight. But yeah, but it helps.
Yeah. So is you really do miss that sort of thing?
I didn't like, I had the break, and, you know, I sort of said goodbye, and at that point it was sort of like I didn't feel I was gone forever, but it was like this full-time job almost, it felt like. Yeah. It felt like I don't think I want to do this anymore. And I sort of had my break and sort of did that, and still nothing came back. And then like this year I'd be chatting to Mikey or chatting to Lockie, and all of a sudden I'd realized when I got off the phone, ideas were flowing. Yeah. You know, and like it was in my head of like, you know, that chessboard, Todd, of, you know, if I took this one and I moved it here and I did this and I called up this one's going overseas, so I do this one. And I reckon at this point in 4 months' time, I'd probably get to here. And if luck was on my side, maybe in 6 months' time, I get to here. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, my brain hasn't done that in a year and a half. And it was like, oh, I guess It's not gone. Like, and that's where it was like, it was unexpected, but it was like, a really, because I'm a nerd, it's like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi tapping back into the Force. It was like I'd cut myself off from it, and I tapped back in, and it was like, oh, I've a lot of ideas for people.
Yeah, it's for me, it's frustrating because I'll sit there at shows and I'll make sort of suggestions. This is probably what I would do, but like, this is your book and you're writing it, and these are your toys in your sandbox. So whatever you want us to do, we'll do it. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, but I think like sort of what keeps it at bay for me is, you know, I definitely don't fit in at PCW, you know, and you know, I probably haven't said this publicly. I don't feel I fit in at the new MCW. So there's no outlet. And they're the two big boys in Melbourne. You know, there's no outlet there. You know, so you know, it's somebody jokingly called one of the WrestleRock shows Wrestle Work Rate, and they said, we can tell that you've got nothing to do because the matches have gotten better in ring. And I chuckled, and it was like, yeah, I guess a little, you know, like putting together Brooks and Royce. And, you know, we did an angle at the end of the match where Royce laid out Brooks and left. Now, chances are I can't pay that off because,
you know,
because he's going to go. But I couldn't help but do the angle because I really wanted to do the angle. And, you know, and Brooks is like, why is he laying me out? Like, and I was like, yeah, we'll do this and then we'll do that. And then I was thinking in my head, I don't even know that we're going to get back to being able to do this. Like, I'd love to be able to, but, you know, it would require Brooks not to go overseas. It would require WrestleRock, because we don't know when our next show's going to be a lot of the time. It's up the Corner Hotel is a pretty prestigious band venue. So yeah, we don't know where it's going to go, and it's like, I'm pulling the angle anyway. Like, it's going to be what it's going to be. But yeah, I couldn't imagine what it would be like in your situation where it was ripped from you. You know, I haven't had that.
Yeah,
you know,
and
like
it's sort of worse because it's like the guys that owned AWL are two of my really good mates. So I'm not mad at them. I can never be mad at them because I know, like we're doing this for our family. So I love your family. How could I be mad at you for that? So I'm sort of just stuck in this creative limbo where it's like you go and work shows and you're like, yeah, this is cool, but it's just not the same feeling as you get, as I'm sure you know, that like when you've worked on something and you go, this is where this is going to go, and I know I'll get this reaction. So then 3 months down the track, we're going to be here, and it's just not that anymore. And for a while, I thought this is going to be great because I'll be able to actually finally focus on just my work, like being that. But then I find myself still like just sitting at the show going, you know, so like I already know my thing's down. I'm fine with that. But it's
like, but when people go, are you going to come down to the show and watch? It's like, no, I'm not. Number one, like with MCW, I had one take. I stood against the wall. I took the show in live from the audience perspective, and I left because, and I never rewatched it on video on demand. So please, everybody, stop asking me to watch your matches. I didn't watch my own shows that I booked. And it's not a thing. It was just, I wanted to stand there. I wanted to see this show through the crowd's eyes, and I'll book accordingly. Because, you know, Mikey, how do you make your money? Through the people buying tickets on the door. Okay, that's who I'll book to. If he told me that he made his money from video on demand, I'd watch video on demand and I'd cater to that. But at the moment, it's a live gate business.
Yeah, because I was always like had a role on the show myself and all of that sort of thing, and I was editing the shows. That was my best way of checking what the show was like, because you can hear the crowd's response, you can see what was going on, and you get that time where you go back and look at it quickly. That was the way I did it. But I can imagine like the freedom of when I do eventually decide I don't want to be like out there doing the whole taking a bump sort of thing. I can imagine that I would like to do that as well. But the problem, if I go to a show like as a fan, I don't have a really good poker face.
Yep.
So if there's something I don't like, people are going to know that I don't like it. And I don't want to do that to people in the ring.
And the other thing is, like, what are you going to do? Like, as you said, like, if you don't like the show, what do you think the first thing's going to happen? You're going to be asked, so what did you think of the show? You know, and who wants to be the face of doom going, who booked that? You know, like you don't want to be that. Like I know after shows, I know it wasn't great. I don't need you to tell me it wasn't great. I know, you know, it was, you know, and like a few times I had angles and stuff that I saw fall apart before my eyes. And then people were openly mocking it like it would get to me.
Yeah.
And it was like, I saw it.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, if you probably looked at me, I had my hands on my head going, oh, I can't stop this. Like, it's, it's, you know, like it's the infamous TK Cooper beating Dowie for the belt and me attempting to kind of recreate WrestleMania 9 where Gino cashed in and TK baits him down to use his Rumble shot and Juicy actually comes down and beats him in seconds and wins the belt. Well, TK gets blown up. He can't do the mic spot because he's sucking wind so bad. Juicy comes out early. He's in massive Timberland boots and skinny leg jeans, and Juicy should never wear skinny leg jeans. And he's stumbling down. TK, like, I know what TK kind of said because I wrote it. The audience have no idea. The audience have no idea that Juicy's cashing in his ballroom brawl. Something goes on. A ref counts 3, and he's holding a belt. And I'm just standing there going, "Shit, that was a disaster." And like Adam just looks at me, and I'm just staring at him, and we both know. and it's like just the thing. And then like later on, people are going, "Oh, what about the time you tried recreating WrestleMania 9 and it went to shit?" And I was like, "Yep, I remember that." Yeah, it wasn't great. You're not pointing out something like I didn't know it. Yeah, and now I laugh, but yeah, good times.
Look, mate, we're under a time crunch because I know you have to get going. But before we do, I want to go through a quick like geek things. Have you seen Army of the Dead yet?
I'm not a horror person.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm a scaredy cat, and
I thought that it was that crossover between the geek and the thing that you might have enjoyed.
Heard a lot about it, but yeah, no, not my thing.
Masters of the Universe, the new series. What do you think coming up?
Very excited. The animation looks amazing from the stills that we've seen. I love Kevin Smith. Like, I'm a massive Kevin Smith fan. I don't trust him. I do not trust him at all. You know, and this is coming from somebody that listens to Fat Man Beyond every week.
Same.
But you know, he's put some good writers on, and I do think it'll be good.
The one thing I will say is, like, if he's had anything to do with it, I know that the series might have a bit of heart. Because that's one thing he is really good at, is putting a heart into something.
You're talking to somebody that teared up a little bit at the end of Jay and Bob Reed. with the parent stuff. So yeah, it's I agree with that. But like I was pointing out on my podcast, Geek Dudes, like what an age we live in, that July 23rd, you can watch Masters of the Universe on Netflix and go see Snake Eyes in the cinema.
Yeah, and low-key will be a series on Disney Plus.
Yeah, like the geeks really did end up ruling the earth.
Yeah. Bad Batch. Have you been watching that? And what do you think?
Yes, I have. A great continuation of the Clone Wars. If you're a Star Wars fan, I love the A-Team. So this is the clones playing the part of the A-Team, set just after Order 66. It's like, oh, they catered this towards me.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, the kid character in it isn't annoying, which is hard which is hard for shows like this to pull off. Like Omega is a young girl clone on the show, and when you hear that, you think, if you're a child of the 80s, you think Orko, Snarf, or T-Bob, or those sort of annoying sidekick characters that 80s cartoons inevitably had. But for me, I've been enjoying it so far. Like, it's 16 episodes in the season, so there's going to be flat bits where it's probably just treading water. I've heard some crazy rumors about what could happen in the show, which, if it does happen, fandom is going to, like, Twitter that day will be so much fun. I will be there. It's like with Simpsons, where the whole town come down with their torches to burn. I'll very much be looking forward to that if it happens. But you know, we've got the Book of Boba Fett at the end of the year. Kenobi's filming, Andor's filming, Mandalorian season 3 is filming.
I love that last season of Mandalorian so much.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
like,
so good. Just that scene with the way they done it with the it's almost the way they'd watch the Darth Vader scene from Rogue One.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, that is so good.
Well, I think, like, some people have actually done side by sides of Vader ripping through everybody and Luke doing the same. I actually just watched that scene because it popped up in my YouTube algorithm, and somebody had set it to the Force theme. So it's Star Wars music as opposed to Mandalorian music, and chills. Like,
well, because you never saw really Luke at the height of his powers ever.
No.
In that whole original series, you never saw that. So to see it like that, you're like, that dude was a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, like it's like he ripped through.
Yeah,
he ripped through those droids like it was nothing. But yeah, that was like such a cool moment. And like, while, you know, we're not getting movies in the cinemas, like Star Wars lucked out. Could you imagine if on their slate was to be releasing movies in the cinemas?
Yeah,
they wouldn't be able to release it. But it actually,
look how long
it actually went their way.
Look how long it's taken for Black Widow now.
Yeah, it's July 8th, I think.
Something like that, but that was supposed to be last year around May, June, I think, if that was.
Yeah.
And then
same as the new James Bond movie. Like, I think, like, Bond pushed back from the end of 2019 for some reason into COVID time, and then got pushed and then pushed again. Like Ghostbusters Afterlife kept getting pushed. So it's really tricky, but America have done so well with their vaccine rollout.
Yeah, I was actually only saying that to my wife tonight. I'm like, you can give them as much shit as you can for the way they handled it. Yeah. But the way they're coming out of it, they're streets ahead of everybody.
Yeah, and we're in a world of pain with our vaccine rollout. Like, I honestly don't feel a majority of us will be vaccinated till early next year, first quarter next year.
I honestly think that they thought, oh, we didn't get hit too badly, so we can sort of take our time on this sort of thing, which is a bullshit way to think about it, really.
Well, we've seen, like, not to get too political, but, you know, we've seen Singapore sort of take that same approach, and then they ended up in lockdown. You know, like, that approach was a mistake. And it should have just been, we've done really well, let's vaccinate everybody while we're doing really well, and then it's done.
Yeah.
You know, well, it will never be done. You know, it's never going to fully go away, but I think they've said if they get up to 80% vaccination rate, lockdowns and stuff will be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what you want. Like, you just want life to sort of get to somewhat thing of normal. Like, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Melbourne goes into lockdown. And while it doesn't personally affect me, you know, I feel for every business and every person that, you know, mentally it affects, whatever. And it's not the government trying to hurt people. They're just trying to manage a situation that we've never had to face before. And it's a real tricky situation, and you don't want people getting sick, ending up in hospital, or worse yet, dying. Touchwood, Australia's been fairly lucky with the death rate compared to other nations. But yeah, it's madness.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And do you often, because I was thinking about it on the way home today from work. I was like, I wouldn't know if would Fresh watch WWE, AEW? What,
Okay. Yeah. So
because I wouldn't. I honestly, my thing is, I don't think you would, but I could
no,
be very wrong.
I'm out on WWE. I can't do it. I watch the Royal Rumble once a year because all my friends come over. We do a sweep where we win a lot of money if you win. I have terrible luck with it. You know, and it's so I watched that. Like, I haven't watched the past 2 WrestleManias. I had watched every single WrestleMania up until that point. It's too much content. Like, I do follow it. So
I prefer to think the last year's didn't happen, but this year's was okay because it was a crowd.
Yeah.
Last year's with no crowd was just too much of a slog to watch. Like I think I watched like Demi's match, and that was about it that I really remember.
Yeah, I listen to recaps, so like I'm certainly in touch with what people are doing. AEW, I'm on and off with. If I've got nothing better to do, I'll chuck on the Fight app and check it out. Because what I found was, as a wrestling fan, I don't know, you might be different from this, Todd, but the WWE aesthetically and style-wise and everything has had minor upgrades. But if you went back and watched it 20 years ago, it's not that dramatic of a shift.
Mm.
And what I found myself doing was, because as a young Mark, I was very pro WWF growing up and anti WCW. I watched WCW, but you know, I was very much team WWF. Now you couldn't pay me enough to watch WWF 98 forward, and I'll happily go back and watch WCW because apart from the Russo era and the last sort of years of Nitro, that's hot garbage. But you know, and what I like about AEW is it doesn't feel like something I've been watching for 20 years. You know, do I like everything that they do? No. I do like some of it. I want them to succeed because I really do feel it's the best thing for professional wrestling is to have 2 big companies. Great thing would be to have 3 big companies. But you know, I don't think Impact filled that void. And neither does New Japan. So yeah, I feel I kind of have to keep in touch just to, like, if I was ever going to book anything, I'd want it to be relevant. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be relevant to the fans, you have to keep in touch with what's going on. Because like one of the other things when I stepped away was I said, I don't want to become Jim Cornette, and I love Corny, but you know, his brain is shut off and he cannot accept that wrestling has evolved in certain ways. Because I always used to say I'd sometimes book for me, but I mostly tried to book for the MCW audience. And a lot of the stuff I booked isn't stuff Criss Fresh wants to see necessarily, you know, but it's not about me, you know, it's about what I think the audience want to see. So you've got to be in tune with that. And the fact of the matter is, and Aussie wrestling, if you want to think you're big time, you know, and it's not taking a shot at you, it's all we've got work to do, is I sat at the MCG that had, what did they say, 70,000? I can't think of how many it had.
Yeah, it was a massive crowd.
We don't get 10% of that.
Yeah. That has been my argument from day one.
We don't get 5% of that. You know, like
when I saw this is back in the day when I saw, I think it was like 8,000 rocked up to Adelaide, the entertainment center, to watch I was like, well, if we could get 1,000 of that, would be amazing. Why can't we get an eighth of this crowd to come and see our guys? Because I can guarantee our guys are putting on as good a show in ring as what they did tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, and there's a natural bias where people just don't want to accept a local product. You know, I think somebody asked Jim Ross once, when you come to Australia, why don't you book the local talent? And he goes, because the fans aren't paying to see the local talent. and he's got a point.
Yeah, he does.
You know, he does. You know, it's like you're paying to see a show. You know, like if I'm going to see Guns N' Roses, I don't want Duff McKagan on bass replaced by the Australian cover band equivalent.
Yeah.
You know, I want Duff standing on stage playing bass. Somebody out there's going, that's a terrible analogy and it doesn't work. It's like, get off my back. It made sense at the time I said it. But yeah, it would just, I'd just love to hear that. I'm like you, if every local show was drawing 1,000, I'd be like, that is just phenomenal.
That's the dream.
But the reality is we're clapping 500, you know, and that's where we're at. And we're going 500's a big crowd. Did you see the big crowd? Because I've been at Thornbury. I've been at Thornbury at its most full, where it's like 650, 700. You can't move.
That night of the WWE weekend, that place was, the Thornbury was packed that night.
I'll never forget Robbie kicking out a 1 versus Gino.
Yep.
And the reaction in that place, like it shook. And
yes. I mean, I was smashed that night because of Cremator, but I still remember that that night.
Yeah. Brad will do that to you.
Sneakily so.
Yeah. The funny thing is, people will always, when they talk about MCW, they'll always talk about perhaps that night, or they'll talk about Okada versus Slex. But for me, the loudest I've ever heard Thornbury, and it was packed, didn't feature an international. It was Slex versus Gino, champion versus champion. And it was that build-up of a year of Gino's reign, of that heel screwing the crowd, screwing the opponents. You know, I know he gets a lot of personal heat, Sebastian Walker, because he's a personal friend of mine, but I don't care. He's good at what he does. He's good at doing his job. I wouldn't put a friend on a show if I thought they couldn't do their job. And him and Gino, you know, became such a hot act for MCW, and Slex getting that momentum, you know, it was like loud. Like it was, if it wasn't louder than the Okada Slex match, it was certainly on par with it, which is pretty impressive. Yeah.
That's like my favorite moment, as like from a booking standpoint for me, was we did we had a big show. It was called Homecoming every year. Yeah. And I can't remember what year it was, because like you, my memory is shot. Yeah. But it was one year where we drew 400. We had 400, and I think it was 472 people in the arena, and there was only one. I think it was 2 interstaters on the card, but it was only because they were in a tag team, and it was like way down the card because they just happened to be in town that night. So for me, it was just all the local guys were able to draw that crowd for that night, and that to me is probably my proudest moment when it comes to that sort of thing, because like this is all these guys got it there. It wasn't the fact that we'd flown up a Brooksy or a Gambino or AJ Istria or something like that. It was all the local guys that had done it, and that to me is what it should be. Like we should be able to draw those crowds with our local products.
Yeah, like funny. I'll close on a Gino story because Gambino is such a pain. In this is how Hogan is. When I wanted him to turn heel, because you hear the stories of, you know, how hard it was to convince Hogan.
That's not good for me, brother.
Yeah, him sleeping on somebody's couch because they wanted to make sure he didn't bail and that he was going to turn, and people didn't get in his ear and blah blah. So I meet up with Gino at Walker's, and it's like, Gene, you're going to turn heel. And if anybody knows Adam Gambino, he needs attention. He needs love. You know, he needs all of this. And we're sitting there, and I said to him, so you're not going to cut promos? And I saw him just look at me wide-eyed of like, what do you mean? And I go, no, you're silent. You don't speak. And you're also not going to have entrance music. And that was the one. Like, he goes, what do you mean? He goes, what do you mean no entrance music? I don't want any reaction from the crowd. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, I don't want to pop. I go, music equates pop. I said, the booze will be your music. I go, that's your entrance music. And Gene was like just horrified. And Walker and I would just add him of like, this is how we're going to do it. And Walker will speak for you. You won't need to speak. And the crowd will be mad because they'll want an answer from you, but you're not giving it to them. You know, they're beneath you. They're going to, like friends like JXT, who was his storyline friend, he's going to ask you, why did you do it? You're going to disrespect him because you're not going to even dignify it with an answer. Walker's constantly going to be the one speaking. I go, it's going to be hard to turn you, so we have to do it this way. And then we just got talking wrestling. And then Gino set me off. So I'd set him off. He set me off. He hadn't seen every WrestleMania. And I was like mortified. I said, what do you mean? He hadn't seen anything before 16. And I was like,
you're still that way. Look at you.
It was like, is that what it is with the kids? Have they not seen every single event? Like, what do they mean? Like, it's like we hired these things and watched them repeatedly. Like, what do you mean you haven't seen them? And it's like, I guess you didn't have to because it was just on TV.
Yeah, that's like when I talk to guys now and they're like, oh yeah, we used to watch it when I was on Foxtel, and I was like, you don't realize, do you, what it was like when I was a kid, we saw SummerSlam in summer because it took them 6 months to bring the bloody the VHS out in Australia. So we thought, oh yeah, it must be SummerSlam. It's summer. And you get older and you realize, hang on, that was in July.
I've actually got to frame it. I won an auction last year, and it's a giant video store poster, and it's the Rumble 91 artwork, I think.
Yep.
But it's got all the Australian dates for what's coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see the delay.
I used to work in a video store, so I knew.
Yeah, so you'd know. Yeah, like SummerSlam came out in December, I think.
The
event
way
was
they
in
did
August.
it was like almost 6 months. Same with like I used to have to. I convinced my owner to buy ECW tapes.
Yep.
When they came out, he was like, "What is this Eastern Championship?" I says, "Don't worry about that. Just get these tapes. You'll get the wrestling fans in for them, and then they'll buy everything else."
Yeah, I remember like they popped up at a video library near me. They had a white cover, and it was the early ECW stuff. I don't think it had the music on it.
No, I'm trying to remember. No, I don't know. First one we got was it was like Stevie Richards and Luna Vachon in a match, and like both of them were covered in blood.
Yeah, with the testicular claw. I'd gotten into tape trading by that point, so I sort of didn't need it and was still in the ECW mark. But yeah, it's look, if you want to feel old Todd, like I now share locker rooms with people that were not born when I broke into wrestling. Like that's just what happens. Royce Chambers and Aisha were not born at the time of the first show I was on, and it makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, because I haven't been in there that long because I was a very late bloomer when it came to actually getting into the business. But but even though that they used to, what do you mean? You said, well, yeah, because we used to watch. Like I never used to get that. We didn't. Like I had to tape trade to be able to watch ECW, the house. Like I remember getting The Doctor Is In 96, I think it was. The Doctor Is In on a VHS and all of that sort of stuff. And it would cost me, like the guy would come in, I would just give him free videos. So he would rent free.
You had a trade system.
He would rent free videos, and he would give me these tapes, and then I would tape them up. Then I would trade them to someone else who could trade me a tape, and then I could trade back to that guy all the other stuff.
Yeah, the going rate in Melbourne was $15 a tape. It was great because it expanded my mind as to what wrestling was.
Yeah,
and ECW in particular.
Yeah, it used to cost me $15 a month to get the month's worth of Raws and SmackDowns on VHS.
Yeah. It was exciting when Raw finally came on Fox Sports.
Yeah, and then when TNT had Nitro, and you couldn't believe because all TNT played was all black and white movies all day, except for this 2-hour block when they would play Nitro.
What always popped me was with the Australian Nitro was they still had Vader in their intro. They never updated to the Lex intro, which always fascinated me. But I think I could be wrong. In my head, in my memory, the first Raw that played on Fox Sports is Jeff Jarrett's return from WCW when he's in that awful jacket. And
he cut the 316 promo.
Yeah, the 316 promo, which cost him a money program with Steve Austin because he said 316 was blasphemous. I could be wrong, but in my memory, that's what the first Raw was on Fox Sports. If not, it's very close.
Yeah, I can't remember because, like I said, I had back then. I didn't bother with Foxtel because I had guys that would just bring me the tapes.
Hey, you're talking to somebody that got Galaxy.
Yep, I had Galaxy
because WCW Pro was on there.
But then I had the dodgy where, like, I had this mate that goes, "I can get you one of those cards that gives you everything for free."
Ooh!
So you'd pay like $100. It was like $140, and you'd put it in, and he gave you all these codes that you had to write, like, put in the thing to cheat the system, and it would give you like all your pay-per-views, everything for free.
Is this on Galaxy?
Yeah, until they found.
So you're the reason they went out of business.
Yeah, well,
you shut down Galaxy. You had to get that specific antenna on your roof that was a direct signal. Like, this is now old man cast.
Yeah, so much so.
Nobody remembers Galaxy Pay TV.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, these kids don't realize how hard it used to be a wrestling fan.
And I think that's part of the appeal was, like, getting the magazines, like fighting to get the tapes, like being able to see it.
Did you ever call that
more desirable? 0055 102 08. Yep. The great Les Dabowski, who hosted the Wrestling Information Line.
I think I was about 14, and I rang it so much that my parents got worried because they thought I was addicted to sex lines.
Oh, really?
And then, because it was like an $80, I had like an $80 charge.
Big phone bill.
And they were like, what the hell is this? And I was like, it's not what you think. And they dialed the number, and they're like, you spent $80 listening to wrestling results from like a Welsh guy.
Yeah. No, Laz, I think Laz is a lawyer in Melbourne.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Like, from what I think I asked Laz once, he at one point made a small fortune off that hotline.
He would have.
And also selling bootleg tapes. And in the late 90s, Laz was smart in he imported NWO shirts. And
that's very smart.
Yeah, and it was $50 because I bought an NWO shirt off him. But yeah, like he jumped on board of just ordering from the merch catalog, using his hotline to promote that you could get it. He also did. Laz was the man behind Pile Driver magazine. Yep, which was a black and white sort of fanzine that came out in Australia that was sold in comic shops and record stores. I've got quite a few. Mikey J actually has every single Pile Driver
of course he does.
Magazine because he's a little shit that wasn't old enough to be enjoying them, but he loves his buyouts. He buys out collections like you wouldn't believe. But yeah, no, Laz, interesting, doesn't watch wrestling. His kid watched it for a while, but I believe I've got a friend who still keeps in contact with him every so often, and I don't think Laz watches wrestling. And it's funny because Laz, like, he was wrestling.
He probably made the most in wrestling in Australia and didn't watch it.
And he never used to go to local shows or anything. But yeah, he just would read the Observer on the hotline. That's
and then do it off that.
And then do it off that. And I was a paper boy, which people won't even know what that job is anymore because you don't do it. But used to ride a bike and deliver newspapers. And on my payday, I'd buy a $5 phone card. And I'd go in the phone booth, and it was just enough to get the news section. So I'd call up and get the news section. And sometimes I'd do it like months apart, and you'd be completely confused by what's going on. Like I remember them going, Intercontinental Champion Diesel will be facing WWF Champion Bret Hart at King of the Ring. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
like what's happened?
Well, I had a mate that moved to America for 6 months to live with his uncle and auntie, and he was just as big a wrestling mark as I was. So he actually went to that Anaheim show where Jericho beat Six for the cruiserweight title.
Cruiserweight. Yep.
Yeah. But I remember after that, I got this big care package, the box like yay by yay, just full of NWO t-shirts, Hollywood Hogan, like the Hollywood Hogan singlet, the bloody Rodman NWO shirt, and just like, yeah. And then he'd send me postcards pretty much with all the wrestling news from that month.
You'd be the king of Adelaide with those shirts.
I knew what was going on, but I was just like, I won't see these for fucking years.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's awesome.
We have to go because we are well over time, and I apologize for that, sir.
No, that's all good.
Get out all your plugs and where they can find your podcast, because you got a couple of great podcasts out there. So please plug them, mate.
I talk nerdy stuff at the Geek Dudes podcast, which is at Geek Dudes, where we just it's a dirty podcast. So like, if you've got sensitive ears, it is not for you. And also, if you are old, like I am, and you grew up watching Hey Hey It's Saturday, I do a podcast that goes back and looks at old episodes of Hey Hey It's Saturday called Hey Hey It's a Podcast, and you can find that on Twitter at Hey Hey Podcast. And they're a lot of fun. And also WrestleRock returns to the Corner Hotel July 31st. It's hard when you hear it when you're drunk. And we will be back in form. We are on the No Apology tour. And I can't tell you any matches for that show, but it is Melbourne's loudest, most inappropriate wrestling rock and roll show. Like, it is something else. We make no apologies. It is not for the faint of heart, but we guarantee you a good time.
Yeah. How are you with Daryl Summers on Dancing with the Stars?
I'm just happy he's got something to do.
I was so surprised. I thought he'd retired. I thought that was it for him, but back in.
Yeah, he always teases he wants a return, but every time he talks about bringing Hey Hey back, like, he gets savage. So I think he should just maybe leave that idea on the bench.
It's like, I think Harry Connick Jr. ruined that for him.
Yeah, and look, the old footage does not hold up. Like, it's like this last Hey Hey It's Saturday, it'll be coming out. It's from 1996. Year fond to me. I was in year 12, and within the first 4 minutes, he's doing a very offensive Japanese impersonation. Yeah, and it was just. But what I always sort of say is, look, you look at it through today's eyes and you go, that's pretty screwed up. But at the time, people just accepted it and laughed at it. Like, I know it doesn't make it right, but I'm just saying that culturally, that's where Australia was at. Like, that was considered okay. And naturally, the second he starts doing it, I'm going in my head, don't pan to the crowd, don't pan to the crowd, don't pan, and they pan to the one Asian person in the crowd. That is most definitely not Japanese. Yeah,
or was even that? It would have even been that, or one of the cartoons.
It's always, but look, it is a fascinating look at what Australia was in that period of time. It's like a time capsule. But thanks for having me on, dude. It's been really fun.
No, thank you for coming on. Like, I don't know why I've left it so long between talks, because I always, I thought, oh yeah, we'll get I'll get you out of there at least within the hour, and we'll be fine. And here we are, plowing through.
Still yabbering on. Yeah.
But no, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
No, not a problem at all. Thank you.
Once again, I say it every week, once again, big thanks, massive thanks to Criss Fresh for coming on. Little bit behind the curtain here. He only really had an hour and a half to talk. So it was sort of like I had a window to a certain time, and I think we blew past that time by about half an hour. So big apologies to him for keeping him around for that little bit extra longer. But if you listen through the whole show, you'll understand why. Once you get talking to the guy, so much knowledge, such an interesting chat, and I can't wait till the next time I have him on the show. So because I'm recording this right now, right after the conversation, and I'm sort of blown away about how much fun that was to have a chat with the guy, especially since we're probably around the same age, so we bath went through the same sort of things when it came to trying to find wrestling. Because back when we were back when we started loving wrestling, it was hard to get. It wasn't a factor that it was on every week on TV, and then you get your pay-per-views live and all of that. We didn't have any of that, as you would have heard in the chat. So it's good to be able to talk to someone who's sort of been through the same beginning of fandom as I did. So yes, once again, big thanks to Criss for coming on the show. If you did like the show, please give us a rating and review while you're there. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts or your YouTubes. Yeah, it's YouTube's the only place you can get it. Please give us a rating review there. If you're on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification button so you'll know every time one of these episodes are up. If you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating and review. If you're on Spotify, follow us, all of that good jazz. Please spread the word about this show, because all we do is spread the word about professional wrestling in this country. And like I said, like we said on the show, the goal is to get as many people out to local shows as possible. And hopefully just our little bit that we do here by promoting the show, promoting the wrestlers, promoting the promotions, it really does help grow the country and the industry as a whole. Please support the wrestlers in any way you can. If that's going to, when you're at a show, at a local show, buying their merch. If you can't go to a local show, you can't buy the merch, but you're still sort of watching it on YouTube, you're watching it through the Fight app for PWA, that sort of thing, go on to Wrestler Merch and hit up and buy their merch from there, because that is a great way of supporting the guys and girls on that. Because I forgot to do it in the intros. Big congratulations to Smash Mouth Richie Taylor for being the first ever Deathmatch Down Under champion. From what I hear, because I'm a Brisbaneite, I don't get a chance to go down to Melbourne. Amazing 2-night tournament, which I cannot wait for it to come up on independent wrestling television. The juice is worth a squeeze. Please, if you get a chance, go and check that show out. I've heard nothing but rave reviews for those 2 nights of wrestling in Australia. So go and check that out. And big congratulations to Richie Taylor. He is, and I said it on our all social medias, he is one of the good guys, both in and outside of the ring. I can't think of anyone really that deserves it more than Richie Taylor. So big congratulations, mate. That'll do us for, please like, subscribe, all of that sort of thing with us on Facebook and we're on Twitter under Wrestle Radio AU, also on Instagram at Wrestle Radio AU, and I am on Twitter at Beast Eastman. That will do it for this week here at Wrestle Radio Australia. What I've been thinking is I might put up, because I did it last week, we did a watch along with Gavin McGavin. Oh, by the way, that episode last week, thank you very much for the feedback we got from various people, and just through the numbers I saw for this week's downloads. Thank you so much for following that. I really do hope you enjoyed that, because it was a great chat with Gavin, and this week's is as good. So I really hope you're enjoying. I'm hitting somewhat of a good streak here with guests and interviews. So really do stick around with us for this one. But what I was saying is, we did the watch along where I put the watch along up on the Friday of the match we did with Gavin. What I might do is, from the old episodes that I've done, where I've done watch alongs with guys like Adam Brooks, David Storm, Rocky Monero, et cetera, I might start cutting those and putting them up just as a Friday sort of gift to you guys for. So if you just don't want to have to sit through the whole thing and you just want to watch the match, you can go to that post, I guess, or video, and just watch the match with the alternate commentary with me and the guest of your choice. Anyway, that will do us for this week here at Wrestle Radio Australia. Until next week, I'm Todd Eastman. It's my opinion, and you're entitled to it. We'll see you next week.
Let's be busy 23, got me feeling way too sweet. Yeah. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 23.